Hello, my name is Ken Van Bree, and I'll be hosting this discussion about as-built photo documentation during the construction process. I have with me today two NARI members, Paul and Kristen, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
I just wanted to start out and say welcome to this first inaugural podcast, or whatever we're calling it, about getting people at work in construction together to talk about some of the issues they have and some of the solutions they have to those issues. So let me just start by asking you to tell us your name, the company you work for, and maybe a fun fact about your construction experience. I can start by saying my name is Ken Van Bree. I work for a company that I set up 20 years ago called eBuilts. We do as-built construction photography, but the way we do that has changed over the years. My fun fact is that I sort of helped my parents build the house that we lived in as a kid, because my dad was a teacher. And so in summers, he and my mother hammered together the house that we lived in. And that kind of got me interested in construction at an early age.
Nice.
So, Paul, what about you?
Yeah, so Paul Barkley, Barkley Builders, a remodeling firm in Marin County. And I've been doing this since I was about 14. And we've had our business for 32 years now. And at first I wanted to go into making films, but decided I needed to eat and put food on the table. So I continued to work in construction and a remodeling firm. So it's not unlike film because it's a collaborative effort. So it's still kind of doing part of what I did before with making films. So we're making people's dreams become reality, right? So,
Kristen?
All right, I'm Kristen Diaz-Clybour. I work for Earthbound Homes. We do primarily new construction or big remodels, and we focus on the technical building science side. I just realized now, as you're talking, Paul, that I've been in the residential building sector for 20 years now as project manager primarily, whether it be internal or external. But the fun fact is that my dad had a family business of doing excavation demolition. So I grew up driving excavators, rollers, dump trucks, backhoes, loaders. The only thing I didn't get into was scrapers. And that's how I paid for school. I went for an engineering, but one of the things I first learned how to drive was a tractor and a dump truck. That's why I learned how to drive without the rearview mirror and only side mirrors.
And how to use a clutch.
Yeah, clutch, and they had 12 speeds, so you had highs and lows.
Yeah. Well, great. Sounds like we've all had a bit of experience in, or perhaps a lifetime of experience in building. But I wanted to talk particularly in this session about taking pictures during construction. And I know that you folk both do. Let me ask, do you take pictures on all your projects or just on some of the projects? That is, are there some projects that are maybe too small to take pictures for and things like that?
do you want to go first, Kristen, or?
Sure, I'll go first. Will you do, if it's like going to be a high end or like a significant remodel, will you start out with Matterport and then we'll do construction site throughout the process, usually on every 2-week basis, so you can see the progress. And then we'll do Matterport at the end, typically. And then we have some projects we do professional photography shots for magazines or for websites.
Okay.
So yeah, we take photos of every day on every job, whether it be a small project or a very large project, not the 360 photos, but just regular camera. And we use a program called Company Cam, as a matter of fact. So we just have a record. But then on larger projects, or we're starting to do it on even smaller ones, is using the 360 photos. They're valuable for estimating as well as keeping records, throughout the project. So, yes.
Okay. And are all pictures that you take, do you take your own or do you have third party come in? I think, Paul, you take all your own pictures, you and
Correct.
some of
Yeah.
your people, but
Yeah.
Kristen, when you use
Yeah.
Matterport, did they come in and do it?
No, we have our own Matterport camera. And so I'm the one who did it. And then I've trained other people to do it. And actually, like Paul, we do daily pictures so that we have like the detailed pictures and we do like a daily report that where the pictures go in. So, but yes, we do all our own except for the professional photography at the end for magazines.
Nice.
Okay,
Kristen, is it okay to ask questions, Ken?
sure.
Kristen, what do you use to do your daily reports with? And, how do you, keep those? Like if you needed to go back to April 1st or something,
Sure. So for the daily logs, we call them, when there's usually like 5 pictures, and then you tell a story about the 5 pictures. I think it's a Zoho form they use where you type it in, take a picture, put that picture in that box. And then for the daily, the other pictures they take, and they might take 30 camera pictures, but only 5 are going to make it into that report.
Gotcha.
The owner, Dave, is a technical geek, just like I am. And so he's got this program that we're instituting where we take all our photos and then it's got geotags. So you have it and you can list it by date so you can see a progress. But also, let's say you want to type in roof pictures and you can type in roof and it'll pull all the projects pictures up that have roofs.
Great.
That's what we're using. And then we also use smart sheets. And our form for smart sheets is going to take that place of Zoho so we get rid of one other software program.
Great.
What do you guys do, Paul?
Yeah, I know, Paul, you do put a lot of your pictures on your website or post them on LinkedIn, right? Because I've seen some of those.
Yeah, and they aren't pro photos. It's just typically the ones we just, take daily for the most part.
So one of the most useful rounded pictures to take is before you close a wall so you know what's behind them. Have either of you what's sort of the most interesting problem you've been able to solve by having those sorts of pictures?
Well, I'll go first, Kristen. A couple of things on this. We're on a large project currently, and I used your program, Ken, and took a slew of photos on the floor plan of both levels of this house we're doing. And prior to sheetrock, so after framing's completed and all the trades have been through, right before we close up, and in the course of the project, the owner has changed their mind after drywall, and we've had some finishes up. So they're like, oh, wait, we want to put an opening here and we want to move this over to there. And I'm like, well, let's take a look at what's behind door number 1. And we open the pictures up, of course, and with your software, we're able to pan around and look up and down. And sure enough, there's sprinkler lines and, the old adage of we can do anything you want, but it's going to cost some money to move that sprinkler line and create this if you really want it. So that was one example. Another one was I took a slew of them using your program again, Ken, to map the entire property. So throughout the phases of construction, and now we're heavy into landscaping. And of course, the landscape architect wants to plant trees all over the place, right? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, let's take a look. There's a bunch of pool pipes here and all kinds of pipes here that we were able to pull up the photos and again look around on the 360 view. And so they were able to alter their planting before doing it the old-fashioned way of actually hitting the pipes and having to repair them. So that's been valuable for that, for sure.
For us, similar. You have clients that always change your mind.
Oh, yeah.
Or like blocking. Like, hey, we plan on blocking here or installing a towel bar, but now you want to move it over here. So let's see where the studs are. Again, we do this with construction site, which just sounds like similar. And also, like if there's something like issue down the road where you've got to fix something. We had one project where the client, again, changed their mind and wanted a different plumbing system. Well, we had to put in a different diverter. And so we had to know where we could open up the wall and what was going on the backside so that we could fix it. So we kind of knew what happened beforehand. So we had better tools. So then informing the clients and knowing what we needed to do.
Yep.
And then legal, right? If you have people come back and say, hey, about this or that, we had someone question it. Wasn't the legal part of it. We had someone question. I'm like, nope, here it is. Here's what we did.
Yeah. Without having to open the wall and actually show them, right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, one of the things that when I talked with Gia about this, she's with McCutcheon, and she actually used us as a service many years ago on this house. And they've been using those pictures now for over 10 years to help the owner with various problems that have come up. And one of the things that came up was something, it was like a water leak that was covered by, they had insurance that covered it. And so the insurance company wanted a complete report of what it was going to cost them to do this before they'd allow the work to go forward. And they were able to use the pictures, both what was behind the wall and what was in front on the wall, to generate the report for the insurance company. So I don't know if any of you have run into that but this was something that happened after the house was complete and the images were still useful for the next 10 years.
No, I think it's great. And that's the idea, right? So we will be prepared if and when we need to provide that kind of proof or exploration. So yeah, I think it's great for that.
Yeah. And I've had the opposite experience with companies that didn't take pictures, right? Or it was from a project way past before they took pictures, or we had to do exploratory surgery to try and find out where things were going wrong.
Yeah, and so any thoughts, Christian, on what that cost you to do that when there weren't pictures, to do those kinds of exploratory? I mean, how much would you have saved if you'd have had pictures? Any thoughts?
So like with technology now, you could kind of see where this was a water leak, right? And had a pinhole and couldn't find out why it did. But so we had to do run hot water, and then we had a heat sensor camera, like a Fluor, I think it was, to see where that pipe is. We couldn't see the leak in it, but then we had to open up the whole part of it. If normally pipes leak at fittings, right? Or they'll leak at where if there's a nail penetration. So, but we had to open up the whole length of the wall. But the bigger part was the inconvenience to the client, right? That's the part where you really, it's maybe not monetary, but it's what happens, the client's experience. And then the time where now I'm in someone's living space, they have to move stuff. I've got to put up protection around that stuff and go from there. In this case, it was a pipe fitting that had come loose, and it wasn't soldered properly. And so it actually, you could pull it, and they were really lucky because it was just a tiny pinhole leak. It could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one report of a nail into a water pipe in the baseboard on his home. And it was, a copper pipe and a steel nail will eventually rust out. And what happened is that this nail popped out of the pipe and a stream of water started running across the floor. And the owners were on vacation at the time.
Ooh.
And the neighbors saw water running down the driveway and called them up and said, there's something going on. And so I don't know if they had to stop their vacation to come back and fix that, or they had to get somebody in there. But they got quite a bit of water damage before that was completed.
Oh boy.
So yeah, lots of things like that can happen, and the pictures can certainly go a long ways toward fixing that. I mean, another situation we had in one of the projects we did is that the homeowner, the project was to be finished by Thanksgiving, but it wasn't quite finished. The homeowner decided that they would go and have their Thanksgiving dinner in the new kitchen. So they went in, they started cooking, and there was a pipe somewhere that burst, and they had to call in the builder to fix it on Thanksgiving Day. But since the builder had all the images, they knew exactly where to go to try and fix it. So I don't know if it saved their Thanksgiving or not, but at least it saved a lot of damage to the house.
Well, it's basically another tool, right, that you can use to investigate what the problems or where they're occurring and hone in on it. So I think it saves hundreds, if not thousands, in the long run, if, for each individual incident like that. Because like Kristen said, you end up having to open a whole wall up versus hone in on that one spot that's causing the problem.
Yeah, it's certainly. And I've had people tell me that one picture saved them $10,000 or
Mhm.
one case $20,000
Sure.
because of what they didn't have to do in terms of.
Yeah.
So do you share any of those pictures that you take during or after the home completion? I think, Kristen, you said you're doing it on a regular basis. Is that you're sharing with a homeowner, or is that with the crew?
We with the daily logs, it's internal, but on a weekly basis, part of the pictures from daily logs or other pictures are shared with the homeowner and architect. And sometimes during construction pictures will be shared on our Instagram if it tells a good, right? So that's where that part of it goes. And then a lot of times the homeowners will get a book at the end of the project that will have the before pictures, sometimes some during pictures, especially if it's the same shot and angle, and then the final picture. So you kind of remember where you were, what it was like, and then what you finalized, what you finished with. So it helps with that emotional buy tie-in that it was worth it for them.
How about you, Paul? Do you share yours?
As a rule, we do if the client wants it. But for instance, on this large project that we're on, we've got over 11,000 pictures. So it's kind of, I mean, they are stored on the company cam, so it's easy to give them access to that, and they can have them just for their records. Or we have not shared the Resolute yet. But Ken, you were telling me about a viewer, and I answered Paul. You sent me that link, and I answered Paul's email where I wasn't ready to do the viewer yet, but I think I may do that at the end of the project, so the owner has another record. So maybe I'll do that instead of the 11,000 pictures. I'll send that viewer to them so they can have that for records down the road. So yeah, I plan on doing that after this project.
And I know, Kristen, I know that Struction Site has a downloadable version of pictures. Do you share those with your clients at the end of the project?
We do not. So the client gets if we do a Matterport, the beginning and the end. Like we almost always do the end, but if it's a new home construction, then there's nothing to see before. But they get those access. Matterport's alive for, we have so many storage sites or storage projects we could do, but that's cool. But no, they don't have access to the Struction Site. We went back and forth on whether doing that, allowing the architects even access Struction Site. The concern was that what if something wasn't the way it was supposed to be, right? It's that catch-22, or the client didn't perceive this or know this. So we don't share that, but we have in the past downloaded from Struction Site all the pictures so that we had it for legal reasons. This client was very particular and we knew that we had to protect ourselves. So we did that. We also use a program called PlanGrid, and PlanGrid's really nice because, for example, this one structural engineer is up in Berkeley, and they don't always want to come down for different viewings. And so what we do is using PlanGrid, we'll take a picture and it posts the picture right on the plans where it is. And I downloaded that for that part of it and sent that report to the the structural engineer. So combination of 3 systems, if you were to use this. Matterport, which is marketing grade, high professional resolution, Struction Site 360, not as high resolution, but you could pull measurements off of it. And then PlanGrid for very focused pictures that can be shareable.
And those what you put on PlanGrid are just single images, images from the camera or the DSLR.
Yeah.
Okay. Do either of you create any kind of owner's manual for the owner afterwards that use any of the pictures?
In the past, no, but on this large project again, there's a program called Centrique, and it basically is exactly what you said, Ken. It's an owner's manual that you can take a picture of a serial number of an appliance, let's say, for an example, and it will pull up all the info and all the cut sheets and all of that on that. You can create rooms, so it's pretty handy. You start with the kitchen, laundry room or whatever, what have you, and keep all that. And so it's a digital manual, which is great because otherwise in the past I've handed people like, this thick of a binder of all the manuals, right, that you collect during construction, and it's very cumbersome and hard to reference later. So indirectly, I mean, I don't really connect, or I mean, in this one that we're building, I haven't connected any of our photos other than, using them to record what models and makes of all the equipment that we're putting in. But it's pretty, I would encourage you to look it up. It's a free program, but we bought the professional version, so you're able to hand it off to the client at the end. And plus, then we also have a reference of it. So we could, look up the kitchen sink or whatever that, later at a later date.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. It could be a useful.
It's Centriq with a Q at the end.
Okay.
TRIQ.
CENTRIQ, correct.
So it drops the UE that would normally be there.
Right.
So, Paul, is it a case where you can use that during the project where, like, if you have your kitchen, everything else, so then now you don't have to have that book in that room that shows what everything's going in?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't understand your question. So.
That's okay. Sometimes when you've got like a kitchen, you've got all the appliance.
Oh, you mean like when you're building it?
Yeah,
you could actually, but we're still doing that the old fashioned way because, the plumber is used to doing that, right? Versus looking it up online. A lot of old school thinking. And it's in that case, for rough ends or whatever, we just do a binder for the rooms.
Yeah.
But you know what? Now that you mention it, though, I think it could be utilized in that fashion. That way, everybody would have a copy on their phone, basically, right? But sometimes it's better, doing it as long as we have it to just come through the binder. But yeah, it's a good point. That could happen.
Well, and both Resolute and Struction Site have a capability of annotating images, so you can put a URL and attach it to any portion of the image. And so we have used that sort of capability in the past to create an owner's manual for the kitchen, especially, that has all of the appliance data and spec sheets and so on embedded in the viewer. As you will. And you can use the same viewer that you were using to create the pictures to begin with. And so, if you've got multiple layers, you've got the rough end, and then you've got the plumbing, and you've got the sheetrock and the cabinetry. I mean, all of those layers can be attached. You got to attach different things to them. So, but we were doing this just as a service for the users. If the contractor could send us the list of all the appliances and their makes and models and so on, we pull all of the data off from the web and put that together in a viewer for the kitchen for them, and they could use the viewer to do other things. I mean, one project we had, it was a multifamily residence up in San Francisco, and we did viewers every kitchen in that project. Actually, the contractor's son did it for him because he was good at using programming of any sort. So anyway,
one nice feature of that Centriq, once you enter the dishwasher, let's say, in there, and then you have the owner's info and my info as the builder, it will alert you of any, for instance, we had a recall on an appliance 3 years down the road. So it tells the owner about it, and or you can look up, it'll like automatically, like, let's say you need to replace a hose or a part, it's got the whole list of parts and number, you know what I mean? So all that info is culled from having that model number and brand in there. So
that's great, because when I first started my company 20 plus years ago, one of the advisors I had said, you should do that, exactly what these guys are doing, And I just felt that was not something that I could take on to do the whole database thing and update
Sure.
now that it's available. And in commercial construction, it's becoming more available to have this kind of stuff. And so they have been some of the programs that are being used in commercial construction allow this, but the whole issue, I believe, of facility management or owner management of their own property is a field is under development at this point. And there'll be a lot of good stuff coming out there that I think we'll be able to tap later. Okay, so just out of curiosity, and you don't have to answer this, but how much do you pay for the use of some of these programs like Construction Site and Matterport and Resolute? How much is that costing you on a monthly or yearly basis?
I'm not aware of Construction Site, but I do believe Matterport, for the amount of sites we have, projects we can download, I think it's like around $1,200, maybe $1,800, like around that range. I'd have to look it up
Annually?
manually. Yeah.
Yeah. The Resolute is somewhere in the 6,000 range, I think, and I believe something like that for the year. Our company cam, I think maybe in the 600 range. I have 2 employees as well as myself licensed. So you pay per user. And then the Centrique, I think it's free unless you buy the pro version, and it's per property. So I think it's like $350 per property, but that's for life. So it's a one-time cost, and then I can share it with an owner.
But that's per property. So if you're doing 2 or 3 houses at the same time, maybe it's 3x that.
Yes. Yeah.
And Kristen, you were talking about Matterport. Is that per project? If you're doing 5 projects in a year, do you pay that on every project?
It's based upon, you can buy your subscription on how many projects you want to keep active. So might have 12 projects we've done in the past. Some of the ones I just turn off for the ones that like no longer, like if it's someone we went out, they decided not to work with us, I turn that one off, make it inactive, so it doesn't count against my active seats.
Mhm.
So that's the way it works.
Okay. And I know that the way that we priced the projects, because we were a service company, is if they hired us to do the service, they got everything at the end of the project for free. And I believe that's the same way that Resolute is set up, is that if you use the project, you can download the resulting images at the end, and then there's no additional cost for hosting those because they're no longer hosting it. So there's a lot of models out there, and what I'm seeing in the commercial space is that people are starting to talk about getting all of the data that the builders have created during the process and getting it to the owners or the company so that they can use that data in their facility management programs. But there's not a good way to get that in there to move that data other than a standard called E57, which was designed for point clouds. And one of the things that the U.S. Institute for Building Documentation is doing is to enhance the E57 transport mechanism so that you can take not only any point clouds you have, but also any images that are placed on plans like Construction Site does or Resolute, and move that over to another program that could then access it. So that the data doesn't get siloed in a given program.
Interesting.
Looks like Ken froze.
I saw that. I thought he was pausing.
That Centrique looks really promising. I just did a quick look up. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah,
because you have to do that anyways for CalGreen, right? You have to give an owner's manual.
Right. Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? And I kept looking up different templates and what have you. And then I remembered this company. We're based in Marin County, so in San Rafael, they were sharing a an office space years and years ago. And I, kind of listened. I'm like, oh, what do they do? And I wasn't interested at the time. And so I looked them back up, and they're still going. So yeah, I think you'll like it.
350, yeah, 350 one-time fee. The client can use it afterwards,
Yep,
and it's like that, and you can pass that 350 on to the client. It's a no-brainer.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And for life, I mean, life of the house or whatever, the owner being there. So, which is great. We lost you there for a minute, Ken.
You did. I have no idea what happened, but I'm back. So, any other things you'd like to say that could be of use to other NARI members who will be watching this at some point?
No, I just would say that I think it's very important to document, as Kristen mentioned, so one way or another. There's a lot of different tools out there, but the ones that I think are best, I mean, the 360 is invaluable in my book. To be able to, I mean, static photos are great, but it's like, oh shoot, what's right there, right outside that frame? I'd love to see what was there. I can't remember. So, I think it's great to be able to capture it, and then how Resolute works with putting that on a plan, so you're not sifting through hundreds of different shots. Go right to that room, that bathroom 3 or whatever you're working in, and that wall, that elevation, that's where the shower is, and boom, it's like that. I put a link. We use that company cam I mentioned, and so the guys are used to using that every day. So I put a link to the viewer of the 360 photos on there, so they can pull it up easily, when they're in the field, just by clicking that link, and it takes them to the viewer. So yeah, I think it's a little pricey, but invaluable later on when you actually need those, need to see behind the sheetrock or what have you. So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
okay.
definitely 360 pictures, especially when you're estimating. I mean, you take tons of pictures, but you never have that, like Paul said, that angle,
Yeah,
right? And then you share that link with subcontractors you're working with, and they're like, wow, this is great. You
yeah,
can walk around the picture and everything else. And it's just really cool to see that same view, looking at it and seeing it as it progresses, right? Take that angle. Like if you make sure you walk the same spots or close enough, you can look in that one wall or that one part of the kitchen and just see it be amazing.
it's almost easier to take a 360 photo than it is a regular photo.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kristen said, during estimating, I won't even use the tripod or anything. I'll just hold the thing up and click, because just being able to move around in the kitchen, right, or a small bathroom that it's really hard to get a shot with your phone of a whole wall, let alone the other part of the bathroom. You walk in and do one snap, and you got the whole bathroom, right?
Well, and some people do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because then you see the floor or
minimal of yourself. Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
block the walls.
Yep. And same thing with construction site. You got your camera on a pole, and it's really quick because, like, a lot of things, the pushback is, oh, it takes too long. Matterport for a whole house could take 3 hours, right? Because you have to go so many feet, take a picture, get out of the camera frame. Matterport takes a while, but it takes high resolution. Construction site, you just walk with that wand, walk like, not like you're walking down the wedding aisle, but not like you're speed walking, like in between. And it just takes the pictures as you go. In like 15 minutes, you get the whole house done.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. So you do use the video walk?
Yeah. You do video walk, and then some of the project managers like to do the 360 pictures, because you can do both and have the same spot on the plan, because it puts it right to the plan using GPS.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Well, that's great. I think there's a lot of good information that other NARI members are going to enjoy. And so I appreciate your joining me today. And hopefully I will be able to put this into a form that I can put up. I think maybe a podcast might be the easiest thing, because we're not showing anything other than our faces that that would be interesting to folks. So I'll have to play with that in the next couple of days and see what what works best, and then I'll post it somewhere and let you guys take a listen.
Great.
Sounds good. I didn't
Okay.
realize this was going to be used for other people. Otherwise, I would have blurred my background and put a different shirt on, but oh well.
Yeah, well, and I was going to blur my background too, but I didn't get to it. So
This is how I see the world, blurry like this every day.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
nice meeting you, Kristen.
Nice to meet you, Paul. Thank
Thanks,
you, guys.
Ken. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye now.